Corporate social responsibility, sustainable investing, and ESG are terms that have been besides us for the last 10, 15 years. It all started with the discussion on sustainable investing and corporate social responsibility. We in the United Nations, we took the first steps in order to bring the world together to speak about these issues. We created the United Nations Global Compact, which is a group of companies from the private sector from all around the world and all the industries that commit themselves to do good and be aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals. We also created the principles for responsible investments. This is the philosophy, it is the same, but it attracts only investors in order to align their investment practices to sustainable development goals and to the principles of ESG, environment, social, and governance aspects. From then on, a lot of things have happened. The Global Compact and the principles of responsible investment have increased their membership by thousands of entities interested in to pursue sustainable investment and compliance with ESG. I would say that in the last 3 years, we have seen a spike in the discussion of ESG all over the world, not only governments, but also private sector and us institutional investors. There's a lot of things that are happening, especially in the environmental side of things, with a commitment that has been pushed by the United Nations to get to net zero by 2050, which is one of the key motors of this ESG. But we never have to forget about the social and governance issues, because that is what drives us and will drive our humanity to better results in the way we produce goods and assets and we invest in those goods and assets. ESG and corporate social responsibility and sustainable investment for us, it's as simple as doing good and doing no harm. That is why we believe in these principles, and we believe that most people have to follow them. What we have done in the United Nations Pension Fund, as being part of the United Nations family, we have always aligned our business practices and our investment practices to ESG and to commit to net zero. We have adopted ESG overlay in our investment practices. We take this seriously, and we consider ESG not only a risk management and compliance technique, but especially an angle in which we have to analyze every potential investment that we make together with return, and they have to be ESG compliant. As I said, we try always to do good and not to do harm while we do our investments. We're signatory members of the PRI. We have been receiving the best grades from the PRI for the last years, and we also have made huge commitments to achieve net zero by 2050 by reducing our carbon emissions by 40% in 2025, and we have already decreased our carbon emissions by 30% in this 2021. What I see the challenges ahead for all of us in the industry of investment, but also in the bigger perspective for all the countries and private sector, is how do we align our practices to common standards on ESG? There has been a lot of talk that we have a lot of data available and some data that is being developed, but we don't have standardized measures to define who's really ESG compliant, who's really attaining their net zero goals, and have a comparable term for those things. I think that the industry and what we're trying to do is to move forward towards standardized approaches that will help us, investors, companies, governments, policymakers, but also consumers, to determine who is really ESG compliant and who is doing sustainable investment. Because what we are noticing is that people are more conscious and more aware, and consumers want us to be ESG compliant.